Good morning, scholars. Today we're going to continue our way through our Greek course, looking at the moods and tenses of temporal clauses. Now, if you're just going to be reading New Testament Greek, these details won't bother you that much or even really concern you. But you'll see from the passages that I've chosen to illustrate, actually just taken from Smythe, that these is used to make quite complex expressions. Now, this video will run a bit long because I got a bit happy pulling Smythe's examples, but the more the merrier. Okay. So you may remember this thing I've called the Great Correspondence. The fact that there's a correspondence in construction between the common forms of conditional, temporal, and conditional relative sentences. And Smythe gives you this wonderful and very important chart at 2561 that illustrates the correspondence between conditional, temporal, and conditional relative sentences. Now we've already did conditional and conditional relatives, so now we're at the last act, and that is the temporal sentences. And we will have many illustrations of each of these. So to start, we have our present and past simple temporal clauses. So, reading 2395, present or past temporal clauses take the indicative when the action is marked as a fact and refers to a definite occasion, and thus the negative is ou. The principal clause commonly has the indicative, but may take any form of the simple sentence. So, from Xenophon, when this was taking place, it was about midnight. Hote de tauta an, skendon mesai esan nukdes. Then again from Xenophon, but when it was getting to be afternoon, a cloud of dust appeared. Henika de le egeneto epane koriotos. Koinos is the word for dust, and ornumi means to stir up. So koriotos for a dust cloud, the stirring up of dust. So the enemy army was approaching. From Thucydides, as long as they led on equal terms, we followed willingly. Kai mekri men apotu isu hegunto protumos hepometha. Now, additional examples from Xenophon. While they were arming, the scouts appeared. In hoi de hoplizdonto hekon skopoi. And here we see how this is just the preposition plus the dative of the relative in hoi, in the time during which or when, in hoi. So not a usual or regularly seen straightforward conjunction, but in hoi de hoplizdonto ekon skoptoi. While they were arming, the scouts appeared. Or from Demosthenes, while there is opportunity, take our public policy in hand. Kai heos este kairos, atelabeste ton pragmaton. And then now on to contrary to fact of the past. When the principal verb is a past indicative with on and denotes non-fulfillment, a temporal clause has, by assimilation of mood, a past tense of the indicative denoting non-fulfillment. So both clauses will have past tenses of the indicative denoting non-fulfillment, but the principal clause will have on. So from Demosthenes, and if it appeared that he had ever done these things, this form of accusation would tally with his acts. kai hopeni ke paineto tauta pepoiekos, homologetan he kategoria tois ergois autu. And another from Demosthenes. They would have kept questioning him under torture as long as they pleased. Ebasanis don an, mekri hu autois edoke. And then a wonderful one from Plato's Cratylus. I would not cease until I made trial of this wisdom. Uk an epaomen, eos apeperaten, te sopias tautese. Now, if the temporal clause has a conditional sense, then your negative will be me. So, from Plato's Republic, wonderful little bit. When, that is to say, if I do not know what justice is, I am scarcely likely to know whether it is or is not a virtue. So this is Socrates' old trick of making his interlocutor define something before he can say whether it's good or not. So if you ask Socrates, is patriotism a good thing? He'd say, well, first you have to define it. Tell me what it is. Because Socrates is always looking for definitions, famously. So, hopotegato dikaion me oida ho estin. Skole esomai ete arete tis usantu kane ete kai u. And then we have the fact that the future indicative is rare with temporal clauses. Smythe tells us at 2398. The future indicative is rarely used in temporal clauses, and when used, refers to a definite time. And let's read this little note here because it kind of clarifies what the situation is. The future is rare because that tense does not usually make clear the difference between action continuing and action simply occurring in the future. So, hote with the future indicative has thus been almost entirely displaced by hotan with the subjunctive. And why is that, you say? What does the subjunctive do that the future cannot do? Well, the subjunctive can either have the present subjunctive or the aorist subjunctive, and thus the subjunctive, hotan with the subjunctive, can reflect the difference between action that's continuing, that is, with the present subjunctive, and action that is simply occurring, that is, hotan with the aorist subjunctive. So that's why you rarely see this future indicative in temporal clauses, and when it does occur, it refers to a definite time. So, from Demosthenes, at that time when you will not be able to do even what is necessary. Teni kaut hote ud hote kre poi ein hexete. So at that time when you will not be able to do even what is necessary. Teni kaut hote ud hote kre poi ein hexete. So hexete is the future of heko. Okay, so we have now to deal with the future more or future less vivid temporal clauses. So Smythe 2399. Temporal clauses referring indefinitely to the future take either the subjunctive with on or the optative without on. The addition of on produces the forms hotan, hopotan, epon, epen, epedon. eosan, mekrian, estan, meaning as long as or until. And finally, hos, when, scarcely ever takes on, although he does have a couple of instances. The temporal conjunctions have here in general the same constructions as aeon or a. Thus, hopotan equals aeon pote, hopote equals a pote. So, our more vivid construction. Temporal clauses referring to the future take the subjunctive with on in sentences corresponding to more vivid future conditions. The principal clause has the future indicative or any form of the verb referring to the future except the simple optative. The negative is ma. So from Xenophon, in my judgment, we must go as soon as we have breakfasted, as soon as we've eaten breakfast. So, emoi doke, epan takista ariste somen, yenai. So it seems to me, emoi doke, yenai. It seems we ought to go. Epan takista ariste somen. So we have on with the subjunctive, with the aorist subjunctive. And then from Demosthenes, when you have heard everything, decide. Epedan hapant akusete krinata. And again, on with the subjunctive. And krinata being an imperative, the aorist imperative, has reference to the future. It's equivalent to a future. So when you have heard everything, i.e. then decide. Epedan apant akusete krinata. Additional future more vivid examples. That's the same slide again. I apologize. Okay, now moving to the less vivid. Temporal clauses referring to the future in sentences corresponding to the less vivid future conditions usually take the optative without on. The optative referring to the future stands in the principal clause. The negative is me. So, first one from Memnerimus. May I die when I no longer care for these delights. Tefnaen. Hotemoi mekete tauta meloi. May I die when I no longer care for these delights. And then from Xenophon's account of Socrates, when hungry, he would eat whenever he wished. Peinon pagoi an hopote buloito. So he would eat the optative pagoi whatever he wished. Now, the first word in that example, peinon, is our nominative singular participle, present participle of penao, to be hungry. So it has that conditional or temporal sense. When he was hungry, he would eat whenever he wished. Peinon, pagoyan, hopote, buloito. Another future less vivid example, again from Xenophon's account of Socrates. Should you desire to induce one of your friends, when you go abroad, to care for your interests, what would you do? So, e de buloio ton bilon tena protrepsastai, hopote apodemoies, epimelestai ton son, ti an boioes. So again, we have the optative in both clauses. E de buloyo, and hopote apodomoyes. Another example, again from Xenophon, he would beg him to remain here until you depart. Kai de oito an autu menein eos ebeltois, and he would beg him to remain here until he departed. Now here it is important to recognize that the temporal clause depends on menein, and that itself depends on de oito an. So you wouldn't want to think that this an was having anything to do with this temporal construction itself. The menein is referring to the future, is what's really anchoring the main clause. So heos abeltois, until you depart. So finally, or getting close to the end, we deal with the generic sentences, the general conditions. If the leading verb denotes a repeated or customary action or a general truth, a temporal clause takes the subjunctive with an after a primary tense and the optative after secondary tenses. The negative is me. So here again, if your main clause versus your temporal clause, if the main clause has a primary tense, your temporal clause will have subjunctive plus an. If the main clause has a secondary tense, your temporal clause will have the optative. So I have numerous examples of each of these. So beginning with the present general, we are all mad whenever we are angry. So here is an actual example from the New Testament. Mainometa pantes hopotan orgisdometa. Mainometa pantes hopotan orgisdometa. So a good example of how one expresses a general truth. And then from Plato's Apology, this is really wonderful. Socrates giving his childhood background to the court. To me, there has been, beginning from childhood, a kind of voice which, whenever it comes, always deters me from what I am about to do, but never suggests I do anything. So, beautiful. Emoi de tutesten ek paidos arxamenon, pone tis genomene, he, hotan genetai, I apotrepe me tut ho an melo pratein, protrepe de upote. So you see here the contrast between apotrepe in the second line and protrepe. Apotrepe, to turn away. It always turns me away from doing something, from what I'm about to do. But it never turns me towards something. It never suggests or induces me to do something. Protrepe de upote. So, emoi de tutesten ek paidos arxamenon, boine tis genomene, he hotan genetai, ae apotrepe me tut ho an melo pratein, protrepe de upote. Then another shorter example from Aeschylus's Persians. This is Darius, King Darius speaking. Whenever a man is eager himself, God too works with him. Al hotan spude tis autos, go deos sunaptetai. Ko deos sunaptetai. So the ko is kai hos, kai ho, kai hoteos sun aptetai. Now, a good example from Demosthenes, especially good when you realize that this is from one of his civic speeches. So he's talking here of the ship of state. He says, as long as the vessel is safe, both the sailor and captain ought to exert themselves. But once the sea has overwhelmed it, effort is futile. So, heos an sosdetai, to skapos, tote, kre, to nauten, kai kubraneten, kai protumos enai. Epedan hetalata huperske, mataios he spude. Now, another present general, this one from the chorus in Aristophanes' Clouds. We do this on each occasion until we plunge into misfortune. Hemes poiumen taut hekastot heos an auton embalomen es kakon, until we plunge him heos an auton embalomen es kakon, until we plunge him into misfortune. Then an example from Xenophon, a past general. He was wont, it was his habit to hunt on horseback whenever he wanted to exercise himself. So, etereu en apohepu hopote gymnasai buloito heauton. So whenever he wished buloito, gymnasai, from gymnasdo, to exercise himself, heauton, he was wont to hunt from horseback. Etereu en apohepu hopote gymnasai buloito heauton. And then another example from Xenophon. Whenever it was breakfast time, he would wait until they, I guess the other troops, had eaten something. Kai hopote de hora ea aristu anemenen autus est epagoyen te. So whenever it was breakfast time, he would wait until they had eaten something. Kai hopote de hora ea aristu anemenen autus est empagoyente. Now the Greek is kind of cool because anemenon, he would wait upon them until they had eaten. Okay, so that's good. Now this last example is really beautiful. This is from the beginning of the Phaedo, the last of the Trial of Socrates series, where we get Socrates' theory of immortality, the immortality of the soul. And so the disciples describing how they would go to the prison in the morning and wait for the keeper of the prison to open it up so they could spend time with Socrates. We used to wait about on each occasion until the prison was opened, hanging out with each other. But whenever it was open, we used to go in to visit Socrates. So, peri emenomen un hekastote heos anoikdee to desmoterion diatribontes metalelon epede de anoikdeen esemen para ton Socrate. So here again, we see we have these imperfects of repetition. They're in the purple. But then these optatives of the, what they're waiting on until it was open, until the prison was open, or and when it would be open, we would go in. So we have this note. Observe that anoi dei, the optative, marks a repeated past action until it was regularly opened, and represents the thought of the subject until it should be opened. So it equals the subjunctive, actually. Okay. This is me again on the citadel at Mycenae. They actually had dug a well under the citadel, and so that if they were surrounded, they still had access to water. So this is the chamber leading down to where the well is. You could only go so far, but it was quite impressive. You see the stone, and they needed, of course, the big trick, although it was not thought to be good form in the ancient world, was to cut off the water from the people you had surrounded. But generally, you didn't even do that because it was just thought unsportsmanlike. If you were going to defeat them, you should defeat them like men and not starve them out. Okay, so I'll see you again soon. Keep working hard. We really are drawing to a close. We have just a handful of expository lectures left, and then we'll be getting full on to the, finishing up book 1 of the Iliad and moving forward in the Iliad. So please do subscribe to my Patreon account so that you have full access to this course and all the wealth of material that will follow. Okay, have a good day. Wish you well. Bye-bye.